And joining us now is Dr. Mohammad Subeh, who is an emergency physician at El Camino Hospital in Mountain View. So, doctor, thank you very much for joining us. I understand you have family that's now living and trapped in Gaza. Do you know how they're doing, and when is the last time you actually had contact with them?
Thanks for having me, Ryan. The last contact I had with my cousins and aunt in Gaza was a couple of days ago, and it's been very sparse. The last I knew, their buildings were bombed out in the northern part of Gaza, and they had slowly made their way down to the southern portion and mid portion of the Gaza Strip. Um, I haven't been able to make any phone connections with them just because of the lack of electricity and cellular service. Uh, my cousin last messaged me that they were rationing out different foods. They were afraid of just dodging bombs and afraid of what the next hour would hold. So it's this constant state of a fear of what's next to come and uncertainty. Um, I think Ryan, what's troubling for me, um, with having family there is, this what I've talked to them for the past years, right? And for the past several months, when I do talk to them, I do hear bombs flying over. So what's troubling is that we now are focusing on Gaza after decades and decades of oppression and occupation and psychological warfare and this pressure cooker just building up pressure, people losing their lives. It's just sad for me to see how many human lives have to be lost before the world wakes up. How far we've moved away from valuing human life, and it just pains me to the core, and I know it pains so many other fellow Americans at the core when they see this and feel hopeless. Um, so, I've put out messages to my family over the past 24 hours to see how they're doing. I haven't heard back, and I only pray that they're alive. We can always lose materialistic things, but I pray that they're alive, and that they're enduring the difficulty of warfare. War is never easy. I came here as a refugee, and having lived through a war as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, I know very well how it changes the lens through which you view the world. And it's one of the reasons I went into emergency medicine and trauma, to help people during their lowest times in whatever capacity I can. Hearing about the recent bombing and killing of over hundreds of people just a few hours ago in Gaza, I just couldn't believe it. I had just walked out of an ER shift yesterday after midnight, and I paused outside the ER just thinking about my fellow ER staff out there in Gaza, caring for the thousands of people who are injured and the thousands of people who lost their lives, and the children. I mean, one of the most difficult things for any ER doctor and ER nurse is to see a child come in dead. It's one of the most, regardless of how much death you see, that's one of the most difficult things we see. And it was very difficult just walking into my car and just thinking about you feel hopeless sometimes. Sorry.
Doctor, no need to apologize. You were mentioning that latest explosion at a hospital in Gaza. Both sides are pointing the finger at each other, but it doesn't take away from the fact, like you mentioned, that hundreds of people have died, hundreds more are injured, and you touched on this as a trauma doctor yourself at an emergency room. I can't even begin to imagine the weight of that news, especially knowing what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, one of the things that holds us together in medicine in general is, and I hope it transcends medicine into other parts of our life is that shared human experience. We all share the pain and suffering of seeing someone suffer through death, someone battling cancer. We see the joys of someone coming into this world, a baby coming into this world, and it's such a shared core um, experience that doesn't matter what label you give yourself, you have those feelings, and we've moved very far away from that. And I think it's time for us to one, wake up to our privilege here in the U.S., privilege of safety, the privilege of having a voice and knowing what to do that with that voice. Use our critical thinking and and think about the information that's being given to us. Go talk to people. Our whole neighborhood concept has deteriorated. Go out there and talk to your neighbors. Understand what's going on with each individual, um, and don't take information at face value just because it's a narrative that's put out constantly through our social media feeds or advertisements or news broadcasts. Uh, think for yourself. We're not a herd of sheep. We are human beings with ability to critically assess information that's given to us. And at bare minimum, if you don't have a voice, if you can't speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves, uh, at least in your heart, feel the pain of those who are suffering. Even if they don't look like you, speak your language, live in your neighborhood, um, share the same language as you, the same culture as you, feel that pain of that human experience. Because if we lose that, we've lost our humanity. We have nothing left. And that's how genocides happen. And we've seen this time and again in history. Every century, we see a people oppressed because they look different. And the reason this happens because those who have the privilege to speak up are silent.
Mhm.
And I caution us as humans not to be neutral in times of oppression. Have a voice. If you're neutral in the times of oppression, you're condoning those who are oppressors, the actions of those who are oppressors, and that always comes back to bite us at the end.
Doc,
So,
doc, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. But doctor, what do you want people here in America? What do you want people here in the Bay Area to know about those that are living in Gaza? People like your family.
um, I asked that of my family in Gaza. What do you want people to know in the U.S., right? Because what is it that they need from us? And the number one thing is to remember that there are humans that have been caged for decades in Palestine, number one. And what does that do to someone? What does that do to a people when you are caged? I want you to ask yourself that. And I don't need to tell you what that'll do to you as a human being. Secondly, is remember that our tax dollars pay for the bombs that are falling on Gaza. And we have the privilege as US citizens to speak to our elected representatives and voice uh, our discontent, our frustration, our anger at our tax dollars that could be better used uplifting our people here in the United States and protecting us in ways that build human capital. They're being used to destroy communities and to control communities. And so having a voice about that. And then finally, they want people to just know what's going on the ground, and not just keep spewing the same rhetoric that's been spewed time and again over time. Eh, Finally, you know, they've been without food, water, electricity for a week now. So I want you to imagine yourself, the Bay Area gets closed off. There's nothing going in, nothing coming out. How long will we last before, we would rise up, before we do something about those dire constraints? These are basic human rights. These are war crimes that are being committed. What would you do as a fellow American, as a fellow Bay Area resident? And I think that's what they would want uh, our fellow Bay Area folks to ask themselves and to know. But speak up. Don't be on the sidelines when you're seeing war crimes being committed. and oppression. This is not a complicated issue at all. It's very simple. It's a human issue. And that's what I would, tell my fellow Bay Area residents.
Well, Dr. Mohammad Subeh, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for sharing your thoughts about what's happening right now in Gaza and sharing your thoughts about your family. Thank you, sir.